Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our CTW Global Talk viewers in our next edition of the CTW Global podcast. I'm very pleased to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Adam Ridgway. He's the founder and chief executive of One Moto Technologies. He's had a phenomenal leadership role within the electric mobility sector and has been in the forefront of revolutionizing the last mile industry. And we look forward to delving into his experience and obviously giving some insight into this sector. So let me introduce you to Adam. Welcome.
Wow, what an introduction that was. Thank you very much for having me.
No, it's our pleasure, and obviously this is a continuation from your participation to last year's and the inaugural CTW Global Summit. And obviously we're excited for this year's summit taking place in October, and I know the team is reaching out to you to explore your mind into other areas in the kind of e-mobility. So let's delve right into it. Adam, just give the audience just a bit of background to kind of One Moto Technologies, and obviously where did the inspiration come from, and obviously what has been the journey so far.
Yes, I'll summarize it because the journey has been several years, and I was very fortunate in 2016. I had a classic car and I wanted to get that converted to electric, and I went to 3 garages in Dubai. 3 said yeah, we can do it, no problem, and 3 failed. And so I've always had a passion for classic cars, not necessarily modern cars, and motorbikes. And I walked out of this one garage once, and I just saw these beaten up, battered, bruised delivery bikes. And being a biker, I just saw that these could be better. These don't look safe. There's a lot of service, and there's thousands and thousands that were entering the roads almost on a monthly basis. So that was really an igniter of curiosity, and being in that mindset of I want to get this converted to converted to electric and so on. I thought, well, actually, I wonder if you could build an EV motorbike for delivery from scratch. So I did some research and did local, regional, international research. No one was building them for delivery. And it was around that time that I just started embracing and embroiling myself in that last mile delivery network, the aggregators, asking everyone questions. And it got to a point we published a white paper about mainstreaming EVs in the GCC. And I thought, right, I need a team. So I aggregated and curated this team of technicians, designers, engineers, other sort of mentors, if you like, and I said, look, I think there's an opportunity here. We could be in a great market because there's an abundance of opportunity without a market entry point as such, certainly not in this region. And then the other side is, if you're not building, if they don't exist, why not? That could be an alarm for it's not possible. So then I went and met with our potential customers and said, what do you need from a delivery bike in general? And then I looked at that with my team. How can we build something? 18 months later, we had the certifications, had all of the testing. We built it in this market for this market because the temperatures are incredibly high in the summer months. So there's the durability, there's the range, there's the speed, there's finding the balance, the size of the human being that's riding the bikes. All of these different configuration considerations needed to be put into place, and then we hard launched in 2020. So it's been a mad roller coaster journey, being pioneers, being the first to market in a region where two-wheeled commuting doesn't really exist, has been incredibly challenging but incredibly rewarding.
No, it's phenomenal. I think we've, even prior to last year's obviously introduction, we've kind of been monitoring, One Moto, and yeah, absolutely, your journey has, gone from strength to strength, and what better environment of the UAE, the GCC. I know obviously you're kind of predominantly a UK-based company, but you've got obviously interest and entities in India as well. So, covering those regions must be challenging in itself, but I think in those markets and those regions are probably going to get the best technology and support.
Absolutely. And the thing, I live in Dubai, I've been here 15, 16 years. And one of the things I love about this country and as well as the city is it's constantly changing, it's constantly evolving. You've got that Kaizen approach, it's continual improvement, and you can't hide from it, you can't shy from it. Change is inevitable, it's happening, embrace it. And that it's almost like through osmosis that creates your mindset that everything is possible right here in Dubai. So yes, there have been these challenges, but really Dubai is sort of 10, maybe 12 million people now, so it's a very large or maybe very small city depending on where you're from in the world. But if you can make it work here with a slight iteration, it can then be transposable to work in other markets. And it's not just designing, building, selling vehicles, it's offering that entire ecosystem, from battery swapping, the telemetry, the subscription service to ownership. It's the after sales, making sure that the customers feel peace of mind and confidence and trust, as well as the manufacturing. So you look at what we're doing here in the Middle East, and then what we've done in LATAM. So we launched in Chile last year. I signed a contract this week with India. We've got Bahrain, Jordan, Iraq, Ethiopia. So we're in 5 continents at the moment, which is incredible in the past 18 months. But 5 continents and 10 countries is not the 50 countries that we're going for. So give us a couple more years, and those challenges surely will, I don't know, blossom, but they'll also every single one of them will be solved.
Fantastic. So definitely a follow-up, at least every quarter with you, should give us a bit more content. No, I mean, it's very important what you've said in terms of obviously, the growth of the organization and obviously the solution. And this kind of leads into, your company's vision, as you kind of describe it, is incredibly global, but your mission is very locally focused. And obviously, like yourself, being in the UAE and being in the GCC for many years. Can you elaborate on how the balance is, or the aspects of a locally focused solution, but looking at a global market, and especially in the electric mobility ecosystem, which you're really building, how that has kind of transpired, and what you see over the next kind of few years will be the key trends in that?
Yeah, lovely question. It's been very challenging, and the big part of building an ecosystem, or certainly being within that I suppose the center or the epicenter of the ecosystem that's very, very nascent, is making sure that what you say is well researched, you've got a voice, and you collaborate. So part of our growth so far, and our modest successes so far, is because we've collaborated, and we've got a voice that, because we have pioneered this frontier market, what we've done is aligned ourselves with the government, aligned ourselves with other stakeholders, and we've proven time and time again that this is a solution. So it's just naturally growing outwards. But when we say we've got a local mission, our mission is to decarbonize all last mile deliveries in the UAE. And that's as local as we could possibly make it, as hyper focused as we can make it. And then as we enter other markets with that presence, those values that the company's built on, the policies and that vision, has to be as well very, very mission focused, or locally mission focused. And once you start having these local missions of impact, change, progression, positive development as well, and that incorporation of collaboration, then it allows others to then have that local mission. But locally combining all these local missions ends up with a global mission being focused on as well, right, and achieved. And what's going to happen over the next couple of years, or next 2-3 years, from our point of view, there's a lot more innovation. There's even more innovation. There's 3 new vehicles that we've designed. I recently signed a contract with a UK space agency to start manufacturing in space, which is mind-blowing. I still haven't got my head around it, but it's incredible. And that will change. That needs
a bit more exploratory there, but let's continue.
Yeah, thanks. And it's very much to do with collaboration. How can we work with others to bring change? And the way we've built our business is not to rely on any third party, because that's really where the challenges and the hiccups in momentum come. So if we can make sure that we focus on allowing others to realize that you can work with us as opposed to compete with us, then that has to benefit everyone, right? For every stakeholder involved.
Yeah, fantastic. So I think, with the local focused, I think in itself must present some kind of challenges, and I'm sure, as you mentioned, kind of the variety of kind of countries that you are operating in, obviously, very successfully in one contract. How do you adapt your actual solutions? Because obviously, the UK EV market is very different to the GCC, very different to India, and obviously you mentioned kind of Chile. We have our project in Ghana, and one of our principal stakeholders was actually an e-bike courier service, very similar to obviously the 1 mile solution. But the infrastructure in Ghana is incredibly different in terms of materials, in terms kind of cost bases, in terms of technicality. So, how do you kind of measure and monitor and keep the quality along and amongst all of these different, regional cities?
Yeah, well, I don't know whether it's fortune or fortuitous situation, but we built the business on 5 core values, and that there's sustainability, technology, experience, convenience, and affordability. And everything that we do has one of these thematic preferences with every narrative that we communicate. But when we look at the vehicles from the R&D, we looked at what can we do now to build the vehicles that are going to be future proof. And because we had that global vision, is the vehicles that are used here, right here in the UAE, it's around 142,000 delivery motorbikes. But there's only about 4,000 commuter or private domestic commuter motorbikes, so that's a very, very small market. Doesn't mean that the vehicles can't be used on the roads. It's just the society of two-wheel commuting doesn't really exist in the GCC. But yet delivery bikes are, mainstream. Whereas in, say, India, you might have a bike that can be used to take you to college, but then of an evening you do some gig work, or of a weekend you might take you and your mates to a cafe. In Chile, you might be using it for gig work full time, but then go to university or go to your job. There's so many use cases. So we've built vehicles that are hyper modular that can suit any of those lifestyle choices. As well as that, when I say hyper modular, if you start off in sort of 16, 17, whenever you can ride, and you have a low range, low speed bike, because that's what you can afford, and secondly what you need, it allows you over time, you get your first job, you get a pay rise, circumstances change, or you have a holiday, in a birthday or whatever it may be, you can then upgrade your vehicle, and by upgrading it, those other parts can then be reused, recycled, repurposed. So it creates, I wouldn't say circular economy because that sounds a little bit greenwashing, but you're creating an environment where if you can constantly adapt, evolve, replace those parts as and when you need to, so they're very modular, they will work in any market, then technically you'll only ever need one moto for life. You can just keep adding to it.
Yeah, I mean, that is a very sustainable kind of model, and yes, I think the ecosystem that you are creating actually drives a new economic sector. And I know also the EV in the traditional four-wheel vehicles has exponentially grown over the last 8 to 9 years, and obviously we've seen the same kind of explosion in two-wheel vehicles. But obviously that then has a major impact on how you sustainably build, and obviously I know that's one of your kind of key pillars, and obviously how you reduce your kind of carbon footprint. I saw on your website you're saying that I think One Moto kind of ticks 15 of the 17 United Nations sustainability goals, so that's quite impressive. I mean, any kind of particular examples beyond what you've already kind of given?
Yeah, so we do. I'm really proud to say that we're audited on our ESG framework, and I really wanted to complete the full suite of 17 SDGs by the end of last year, but I was forcing it, and I thought I don't want to force it. I don't want to greenwash. We've done everything so efficient and so thorough and so with purpose to achieve the 15 out of 17. I'd rather wait and have it done properly. So that's going to be my goal for this year, to positively achieve all 17. We positively impact those. And what we've done is we've created, when we say audited, there's a company in the UK called Future Plus, and they help you set your framework, the guidance, and they help you through the operation, because it's a relatively new subject in terms of being integrated into companies, right? It's only been a couple of years really. So what we've done is we've worked very, very closely with them, and we've created these 39 policies right across our supply and value chain, which helps monitor it's not just the carbon, but our footprint in general. But then we even monitor the staff, our team, of how do they get to work, what are their personal lives. We've gone that little bit further. But then any of our supply and value chain, they have to mirror our policies. They have to pledge and sign commitment to our policies, and then we monitor those. If they don't, we will not work with them. We're very, very committed. So that's that sustainability agenda that we've got, and it was a very transparent ESG pledge in January 21, which some of the stakeholders and investors and boards said, we don't want to be that transparent, for various different reasons. And I said, no, it's absolutely the right thing to do. We're a company built on values. We need to demonstrate that we're leading by example. Hopefully others follow, or certainly it will garner a lot more trust.
Yeah, no, I think that is a mission. I think if you look at the most kind of important, morally kind of valued entities, they are driven by, like yourself, Adam, you've got a very high moral standard within this sector. Your contributions are having a phenomenal impact, and it is absolutely imperative that your kind of internal ecosystem, your staffing, your suppliers, all the way through to your supply chain, value and buy into the same kind of proposition. So I think that is critical. You mentioned Future Plus, because that was my kind of next question, because I think strategic partnerships, I know you mentioned working with government and working with industry bodies, but obviously strategic stakeholders are a massive value proposition in terms of your kind of partnership. Are there any other future stakeholders in any of the regions that you think will be quite innovative in terms of helping you deliver your 2 to 3 year targets?
Yeah, there's a couple of companies I can't mention yet because the global releases haven't been announced. They're equally as exciting as all the others. But if we take regionally, Dubai Chambers has been absolutely instrumental to our growth, and not just our growth, but the awareness that comes with that. Here's a little startup that's got a big vision, and we're endorsing their vision, and so that's incredible. Then we've got Future Plus, as we've mentioned. There's the RTA, the Roads and Transport Authority, wouldn't be here unless it was for them, and it's a big pressure for them. If you think you've got a guy that you don't know who's got this ambitious idea for building a sector and industry that doesn't exist, and he's got some vehicles that I've never been on, and he wants to try and implement them onto our roads when he hasn't done that anywhere else. Where's the test case? It's not like Ford come in and say, we want to enter your country, please welcome. It hasn't been like that. So when they make a decision, they have to be so incredibly thorough, because when they make that decision, they need to make it once and they need to make it right, because there's too much at stake. There's lives at stake. If vehicles are vehicles, and the use case is incredibly high pressured. So they have been absolutely instrumental. Then when you start looking at other government departments, Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Industry and Advanced Technology, the UAE Space Agency, there's a tremendous amount of stakeholders, and we've always had this collaborative mindset. And you can try and do it yourself, but why? You don't need to struggle. Just make it easy for yourself. Let everyone benefit. It's a lot more advantageous. It's a lot quicker. It comes with its problems, but it's all about relationships.
No, indeed. And I think, the UAE, there's just a continuous levels of kind of plaudits, because I think they do drive innovation, but they back it up with both investment, obviously, partnerships like yourself. They back it up with obviously creating the awareness, but also the infrastructure especially in the space of technologies and solutions, to be actually delivered and tested. So I think, you're in a very good kind of region. But I'm sure, Adam, there must have been some, challenges along the way that you could share with the audience, that, maybe someone who's, listening to this and watching this podcast and has an idea, something that you may have, faced a challenge, regionally or locally, or even, from a governance position, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, there really has been many challenges. One is the company's grown quicker, bigger, than not the vision, but certainly our roadmap or our timelines. But we're still a modest, small company. But it's not necessarily grown. It's grown in depth and mass, as opposed to one route of success. So that's been a challenge, because you're learning things that you didn't necessarily anticipate for, and the sinews of complexities with whether it be insurance or other bits and pieces that surround the vehicle usage. So that's been a challenge. There haven't been any challenges with the vehicles and the technology, because we really harnessed our attention on that in the early days, and now it's just incremental betterment, using the best technology. During the first 2 years of operation, we had COVID, so there were supply chain issues. They weren't in full flow, but we were very fortunate with our buying process to not have that impact us and our customers too much. A few weeks as opposed to many months of delays, so that was good. There's always a challenge when starting any business or running any business is manpower. Having an exciting industry like electric vehicles and say clean tech, sustainability, mobility, these hot subjects or hot industry, you've got a lot of people that want to consume a lot of your time. And I understand it, it's exciting, crikey, it hits an emotional connection with some, or passionate, or side project, whatever it may be. There's a lot of attention that I suppose is offered your way, and that's very challenging, because I always like to respond, I always like to be polite, but at the same time, I'm on a mission. I don't have much time. So carving out time for others has been a personal challenge for me, and helping other startups and founders in whichever market, whichever sector or industry. So that's been a challenge. But in terms of the challenges of export of the One Moto brand, the challenge has been timing. So in the UK, to get certification, 3 days. In Chile, 4 months. In Nepal, 9 months. I think it's been something like that, because it's a new industry that you're helping to advise and guide, and so that's that. There are a couple of challenges. It's timing, but timing can also be a positive. It allows you to not rush, do things the right way, second guess, question, position yourself stronger, make sure that you've got everything that you need to go to the next country. So that's just been a learning curve.
Fantastic. And obviously, look, in a leadership capacity, those are unfortunately part and parcel of what you do. Look, we as an organization, we also operate in 9+ countries, and we absolutely understand, the UAE has very integrated infrastructure, both in terms of legislative governance, etc. Very different to Asia, very different to Europe, very different to Africa, and moderating those expectations. But do you foresee, obviously, with now a vast amount of the experience in terms of conceptual to building this, this EV sector, do you think your experience can be utilized in a very positive way into the advocacy? As you said, each market has a different infrastructure for the EV. Are you looking to advise more on advocacy and regulations to make sure that there's a consistency? Because obviously the technology applications in each of these markets is going to be very similar, but obviously providing the regulations and advocacy is quite different. Is that an area where I think hopefully your contributions could be of incredible value?
Yeah, lovely. I haven't actually thought about stepping into that as a position. Although I am part of the steering committee here, I'm part of a couple of sort of lobbying groups, but very gentle lobbying as opposed to the hard-hitting, placards out and so on. So yes, I certainly do. And there's also a lot of startups from around the world. Someone phoned me yesterday from the UK saying, this is what we want to do with the retrofit and EV fit out retrofit for Rolls Royces and other cars and so on. And what's your advice? So yes, I do advise as and where I can. With the amount of data research that we've got, the primary research that we have in every market and the markets that say dealerships or distributors approach us for, they do a feasibility study. So we've got a lot of that we then cross-reference, cross-check. So we probably have in close to 27 countries of data, various different sort of depths of detail. But yeah, so 27 countries. So yeah, maybe I should think about it.
Well, I mean, it's definitely a white paper that in there somewhere, because this market is moving so aggressively. Week by week, there's obviously new announcements. Obviously, in the EV market as a whole, it is generally going to pick up pace, and obviously, both consumer, both industry and sustainability and research, all of those things are going to shift and have more focus on the sector. So I think definitely, what you're doing, Adam, is phenomenal. Just a few more questions. I'm sure, we'll be definitely wrapping this up very, very soon. But the three areas, I think, in terms of environmental and profitability and time safety, I mean, as the EVs kind of really grow, where do you think will be a critical juncture in terms of, solving the next kind of, 10 years of kind of challenges for the last mile industry?
Yeah, lovely. I come from a background of building brands and also storytelling values and so on. When we say that environment is a key problem or an issue that we address, it is. So the 92,000 delivery bikes on the roads in Dubai are insignificant compared to the 37 million in India, or the 1.3 million in the UK, or the 67 million in Vietnam, 20 million in Pakistan. I've got loads of stats. So when we look at the 92,000 is a tiny, tiny number, but the 92,000 also produces just over 290,000. Sorry, it would take 290,000 acres of forest to sequester the amount of CO2 that's produced from those 92,000. That's 10 times the size of Paris. That's 92,000. When you start looking at as the last mile industry grows, which is around 27% year on year, and it's looking potentially 300,000 bikes in Saudi by 2027, this market is growing, or this industry sector is growing. So all we can do is make sure that we monitor and track that progress. The beauty about the environment that links into the profitability is that as we educate, and hopefully others educate as well, when there's more understanding of having a sustainable fleet, sustainable delivery network, you can then, as we have the carbon certifications, you then have, as the asset owner or the fleet owner, you can then offset your carbon because you own that asset. So that is a completely different revenue stream. If we end up owning the asset, fantastic. That becomes our fund, our philanthropic fund, if you like, to then support the environment even further with other initiatives and contributing even more to the SDGs and the companies involved. But then you look at the profitability. A lot of companies that operate in this last mile sector don't really care about the environment. And that's sort of okay, because depending upon their job, they don't necessarily have a holding company. If they do, then they certainly have a framework or some green agenda. If it's just their company, they'll go, yes, it'd be nice to care, but profit. I'm working on small margins. I need to grow the company or sustain my business. So profitability is very, very important to everyone involved. And that's the riders, making sure they earn more each month. The fleet operators or the owners, how can you own a vehicle that's premium, but how can I afford it? And this is not just for fleet, but this is also for the day-to-day user. So in India, we're offering premium vehicle, and it'll be around 4,000 rupees a month, which is what most people can afford in sort of the metro cities, tier 2, tier 3 cities. So that's incredibly important. You do that through intelligent finance offering or asset finance, and we've got about $190 million available at the moment to allow us to do that. So when you look at profitability, there's an issue, but there's the One Moto solution to harness that. and help that. Then you look at the welfare, the time and safety of the riders. This is incredibly important. So it's not just how through big data and AI you can make the riders more productive, so they're delivering more over a less amount of hours, less amount of kilometers, therefore they've got less time on the road, they're less tired. And with that increased productivity or optimized productivity, everyone's earning more. And hopefully through that, with less pressure, everyone's a little bit happier. That can be transposed to every single market. That's through, say, the data, the telemetry. But then with that sort of rider welfare, if they've got more time, they're safer on the roads, because our vehicles are considered smartphones on wheels. There's a huge amount of data that the vehicles communicate with the rider, communicate with us in terms of service and maintenance. We alert 2,000 kilometers or 15 miles, you need to replace your tires. Do you want to book it into the local workshop near you? There's a huge amount. So those three missions that we have, or submissions, incredibly important to us, that are transposable, that will only continue to be bigger problems over the next 10 years.
And those problems, I'm sure you have phenomenal amounts of solutions for, Adam. I think that's going to be the exciting kind of journey to look. We'll be very, very closely watching One Moto, not only in this region, but, very excited to, hear of all of the other markets that you operate in, and I'm sure we'll have conversations on those. On a final note, I just wanted to say, look, are you excited about, the direction of the entire EV solution, especially in the last kind of week or so? There's been announcement of the traditional motorcycle manufacturers, them launching their e-versions. How excited are you about that? And does that have an impact into your side, not as a obviously competitor, but just raising the profile of the whole EV two-wheel sector?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely it does. And I love watching, reading, just staying up to date with what's happening in every little part or sub part of the industry. So it's not just the big Tesla, Neo, the big EV automotives manufacturers that are making their announcements, but it's also learning from what is their business model and how could we apply certain things that are working, certain things that aren't. But they're not just looking at those, looking at Apple, looking at Coca-Cola, looking at Dell, looking at various other companies. How can we learn from that, and how can we make ourselves that little bit stronger or that little bit more progressive, and so on. If you look at the EV car manufacturers, I've had this thing, this is my prediction and forecast. I don't believe in the next, let's say 10 years, that every car that's produced EV will have a slightly different shape, of course, as in the exterior. It'll have a slightly different light bar, but they all sort of look fairly similar at the moment. You could almost debadge all of those cars and you wouldn't know which is which, apart from a few of the let's say Porsche and Tesla that have been around for quite some time. They're all going to have about 10 buttons and switches, and the rest is going to be the dashboard. There's nothing really to distinguish why you would buy that car as opposed to another car. The interiors are going to be relatively similar, equally as comfortable, the same shaped steering wheel and so on. Why are you going to be buying that car as opposed to one sat next to it? So in the EV space, I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of change. I do believe that the micro car and the SUV are going to be the champions, the heroes. There will be other models, but I think they're going to be the main two, especially if 58% of us are going to be in urbanized environments over the next sort of 10-15 years. Then we'll need smaller cars for congestion. I also think the subscription service for vehicle ownership is going to change. So if you look at that and then apply that to the motorcycle or two-wheeled market, having the Hondas, the Suzukis, those, I believe Royal Enfield in a couple of years, but once you have a few of those manufacturers that create their e-bikes, yes, there's going to be more market, but it's brilliant because it shows that there really is a market, where we've been telling people that here's the market, here's the stats. If you've got Honda, we know that Harley Davidson, but say there's the smaller, larger volumes, but things with Honda and Yamaha and so on, they need to sell millions of vehicles a year to be profitable. That's going to be their challenge. We don't. So that's where I'm not saying we're defensible in that regard, but there's going to be a huge amount of change. And I think anyone coming to the market, there's something to learn from them, very, very much. We're small, so therefore we're more agile. Hopefully we'll always have that startup mentality, so that'll be in favour of us. And the technology, the more investment there is into that R&D, especially with what we're doing in the space tech or the deep tech, is that we're going to be able to help them over time. Even the tiny little startup, we're then certainly going to be able to help them in the industry. So it's a very, very exciting time. Watch this space.
And we will, I think that's something that's kind of clearly coming out, Adam, that, the vision that you have is probably just a starting to a phenomenally long journey. And yeah, absolutely, the points that you've just made on the EV market, I think the whole EV market, where there's a technology element to it, is going to culturally change the way you utilize the vehicles. It's going to shift in terms of value proposition. It's going to shift in terms of the modal use of that transportation. And also, you mentioned urbanization, but when you put that into a smart city environment, the whole premise is less vehicles on the road, more people utilizing, kind of public smart transports. And there is absolutely a gap for, One Moto to be, influencing that kind of future. So we're very excited for you, Adam, and you've done a phenomenal job, and we absolutely will be, monitoring and championing your success over the next couple of years, not only in the GCC. So hopefully we'll have a definitely second and third iteration of these global talks in the next year or so. So thank you very much for your time, Adam, and we look forward to working with you professionally and through our platforms to see your continued success.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Fantastic. So that was Adam from One Moto. So please keep their brand and their vision and their products in your mind, and please go look at their website for solutions. And we'll keep you posted on the CTW Global talks for the next generation and next speakers. So keep on the socials, and we look forward to speaking to you again. Thank you very much, everybody, and good morning, good evening, and good afternoon.